It is now our privilege to hear again from the Vice President of the Watchtower Society, Brother F.W. Franz. His theme is one that arouses our keen interest: divine loving kindness and the kingdom. Let us give our undivided attention to what is certain to be a talk that will stir all of us. Brother Franz.
Hey there, all you thirsty ones, come to the water. And the ones that have no money, come, buy and eat. Yes, buy wine and milk, even without money and without price. Why do you people keep paying out money for what is not bread? And why is your toil for what results in no satisfaction? Listen intently to me and hear what is good, and let your soul find its exquisite delight in fatness itself. Incline your ear and come to me. Listen, and your soul shall keep alive. And I will readily conclude with you people an indefinitely lasting covenant respecting the loving kindnesses to David that are faithful. Look, as a witness to the national groups I have given him as a leader and commander to the national groups. That was Jehovah God calling, inviting the thirsty and hungry ones. What was there to thirst and hunger for? A righteous king, a good government in fulfillment of the covenant that Jehovah God concluded with King David. Never was there a covenant more important than this covenant made by God himself with the man David. Everyone thirsting and hungering for a government of justice, peace, and perfect integrity must wait for God to carry out that covenant to the full. The covenant is no mere scrap of paper that can be torn up and trampled on in contempt by willful violators. The covenant is unbreakably binding. It must and it will be fulfilled. It seems almost unbelievable that the Most High God of heaven would make a covenant or solemn binding contract with a mere man on earth. From the very time that Jehovah established a covenant with David for the everlasting kingdom, that kingdom covenant became something demanding the loyal support and adherence of both God and man. The covenant was inseparably linked with King David and his line of royal successors. In fact, the covenant was personified in David's royal house or dynasty, so that loyalty to the covenant meant loyalty to the house of David under Jehovah God. Man's loyalty had to be directed to that covenant. Down to this year, 1958, that is a principle from which we may never swerve if we are determined to please the great proposer of the covenant, Jehovah God. we have Jehovah himself as our perfect example of loyalty. Some considerable time after King David had been so highly favored with this covenant, he was overtaken in a set of shocking sins, dark crimes in violation of the 10 Commandments. He covenanted another man's wife and committed adultery with her, the wife of his own faithful military officer, Uriah the Hittite. When the woman became pregnant, the spiritually unbalanced David sought to protect himself. He had her husband maneuvered into a dangerous battle position, there to be abandoned to certain death. After the courageous, loyal Uriah had thus been sent to his death, David sent and took Uriah's wife to his own house to be one of his many wives. For these dark crimes, should not the unclean, blood-stained David be condemned to death and the covenant with him be cancelled? Through the very prophet Nathan, by means of whom Jehovah had announced the kingdom covenant to David, Jehovah sent his message of heavy condemnation, showing how despicably David had acted. In punishment, a sword was never to depart from David's own personal household. Evil was to be raised up out of his house, and some of his wives were to be violated openly. David saw how he had despised Jehovah and had treated the God of the covenant with disrespect. Sorrowfully, he confessed his sin against Jehovah. He feared for his life. "You will not die," Nathan told him, "but the illegitimate child of his covetous idolatry or adultery was to die." Nothing swerved Jehovah from this sentence. The bastard child lived only 7 days and died. However, what about the kingdom covenant with David? Jehovah did not cancel it. He was loyal to it. He exercised the loving kindness that was to go with his covenant in order to carry it to glorious success. David was reinstated in the divine favor and was kept on the throne of Jehovah in Jerusalem. But the several punishments set forth in Jehovah's sentence of condemnation were inflicted upon David in course of time. The depths of Jehovah's loving kindness, or as the marginal reading of the New World Translation renders it, loyal love, was shown still more in that the next son that David had by Uriah's former wife, this time a legitimate son, was chosen by God to become David's successor in the throne and to carry forward the kingdom covenant. So, after David's death in divine favor, Solomon began to sit upon Jehovah's throne as king in place of David his father, and to make a success of it. And all the Israelites were obedient to him. Jehovah's loving kindness, according to the kingdom covenant, proved to be a means of salvation. How wonderful. That is why King David could say in his psalm, "I shall thank you, O Jehovah, among the nations, and to your name I shall make melody." The one doing great acts of salvation for his king and exercising loving kindness to his anointed one, to David and to his seed forever. When his son and successor, Solomon, was dedicating the magnificent temple for which David had made such preparations, King Solomon could say with hearty appreciation in public prayer to God, "O Jehovah, the God of Israel, there is no God like you in the heavens above or on the earth beneath, keeping the covenant and the loving kindness toward your servants who are walking before you with all their heart, who have kept toward your servant David, my father, that which you promised him, so that you made the promise with your mouth, and with your own hand you have made the fulfillment as at this day. And now, O Jehovah, the God of Israel, keep toward your servant David, my father, that which you promised him, saying, there will not be cut off a man of yours from before me to sit upon the throne of Israel, if only your sons will take care of their way by walking before me just as you have walked before me. And now, O God of Israel, let your promise that you have promised to your servant David, my father, prove trustworthy, please. The dividing of the 10 tribes of Israel into 2 kingdoms put a great test upon the Israelites regarding loyalty to the kingdom covenant. But there were Israelites that put God's worship and his kingdom covenant above nationalism. They are an example for us today. For instance, take the priests and Levites who served at Jehovah's temple in Jerusalem, but whose homes were located in 48 cities scattered about the 12 tribes of Israel. The record that they made for themselves reads, quote, the priests and the Levites themselves that were in all Israel took their stand by the son of King Solomon out of all their territories. For the Levites left their pasture grounds and their property, and then came to Judah and Jerusalem, because Jeroboam, the king of the 10 revolted tribes, and his sons had discharged them from acting as priests to Jehovah. And following the Levites from all the tribes of Israel, those that were giving their heart to seek Jehovah, the God of Israel, came themselves to Jerusalem to sacrifice to Jehovah, the God of their forefathers. And they came strengthening the kingship of Judah and confirming Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. Israelites who were living temporarily in Judah did not revolt and stir up civil war, but submitted loyally to the king who represented Jehovah's kingdom covenant with David. The record says, as for the sons of Israel that were dwelling in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam continued to reign over them. Throughout the reigns of a number of kings of Judah, faithful Israelites deserted to the kingdom of Judah because its king was enjoying the loving kindnesses or acts of loyal love of Jehovah. In the days of Rehoboam's grandson, King Asa, he began to collect together all Judah and Benjamin and the temporary residents with them from the revolted tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh and Simeon, for they had deserted to him from Israel in great number when they saw that Jehovah his God was with him. So they were collected together at Jerusalem. Furthermore, they entered into a covenant to search for Jehovah, the God of their forefathers, with all their heart and with all their soul. They sought for him while he could be found. And the record is, he let himself be found by them. King Ahaziah was the 8th ruler of Jerusalem in the line of King David. At his death, there came a remarkable demonstration of loyalty to the kingdom covenant as symbolized in the royal house of David. King Ahaziah's mother, Athaliah, the granddaughter of wicked King Omri of the revolted 10 tribes, usurped the throne of Jerusalem. That throne belonged only to men in Jehovah's kingdom covenant. To keep herself in the throne, Athaliah destroyed all the royal offspring of the house of Judah, all except a baby boy, Jehoash. His aunt, Jehosheba, had married the Levite high priest, Jehoiada. Determined to keep the royal line of King David alive, in harmony with the covenant that David should not fail for a man to sit on his throne, Aunt Jehosheba stole baby Jehoash away. She kept him and his nursing woman concealed in an inner bedroom in the temple of Jehovah. How appropriate that Jehovah's temple safely concealed the lone heir of his kingdom covenant. In the 7th year of this underground existence of growing Jehoash, the loyal high priest Jehoiada brought him forth and anointed him king at a temple pillar. The murderous usurper Athaliah heard the noise of jubilation. "Conspiracy! Conspiracy!" she cried out when she came in and saw what had happened. In loyalty to Jehovah's rightful king, Jehovah's high priest Jehoiada had her conducted outside and put to death at a gate of the palace. So, in his loving kindness, Jehovah, by means of his loyal worshippers, proved true to his covenant made with his servant, King David. Loss of appreciation leads to disloyalty. Even Jehoash gave an example of that. As long as high priest Jehoiada lived and was his spiritual advisor, King Jehoash went straight. After Jehoiada died, Jehoash listened to idolatrously inclined princes of Judah. Jehoiada's son, the high priest Zechariah, objected. "Because you have left Jehovah, he will in turn leave you," Zechariah said. Finally, at King Jehoash's own command, the people conspired against high priest Zechariah and stoned him to death in the very courtyard of Jehovah's temple. What base ungratefulness! Says 2 Chronicles 24, verse 22, Jehoash the king did not remember the loving kindness or loyal love that Jehoiada, Zechariah's father, had exercised toward him, so that he killed his son, who, when he was at the point of dying, said, "Let Jehovah see to it and ask it back." Jehovah did. The record tells us how Jehoash died. His own servants conspired against him because of the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest. And they got to kill the king upon his own couch so that he died. His son Amaziah succeeded him on the throne of Jehovah. Thus, by Jehovah's loving kindness, the kingdom covenant kept operating. Now, how can we today be loyal to Jehovah's everlasting covenant with David for the kingdom? With whom today has Jehovah concluded an indefinitely lasting covenant respecting the loving kindnesses to David that are faithful? Look, the old city of Jerusalem is today held by Mohammedan Arabs. The mountaintop, once occupied by Jehovah's temple, is now crowned with a mosque known as the Dome of the Rock. As for the Republic of Israel, it has no king of the royal house of David in the covenant for the kingdom. What has happened to the everlasting kingdom covenant? Our gaining everlasting life in God's approaching new world of righteousness hangs on our getting the right answer and acting in loyal harmony with it. In the year 618 before Christ, King Jehoiakim, the 19th ruler in the direct line from King David, became king, but reigned only 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. He surrendered to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and was deported to Babylon, where his children grew up. His uncle Zedekiah was put on the throne of Jerusalem and reigned 11 years. In 607 before Christ, he was captured and taken to Babylon to die childless. And Jerusalem and her gorgeous temple built by Solomon were destroyed. 70 years later, Zerubbabel, the grandson of Jehoiakim, led a remnant of loyal Jews back from Babylon to Jerusalem to rebuild Jehovah's temple. As a subject to the new world power, the Persian Empire, Zerubbabel served as civil governor of the land of Judah, but sat on no throne of Jehovah. Had Jehovah's covenant for the kingdom failed? Because since the overthrow of unfaithful King Zedekiah, no royal heir of the house of David has sat on the throne of Jehovah in Jerusalem? Had Jehovah's covenant for the kingdom been dropped? No. Jehovah's loving kindness, his loyal love, did not permit such a thing. True, he overturned his throne in Jerusalem and ousted the last earthly king to occupy it, Zedekiah. But Jehovah did not nullify his everlasting kingdom covenant. In fulfillment of the terms of the covenant, he merely permitted the house of David to take its punishment for the badness of the many kings who misrepresented Jehovah on the throne of Jehovah at Jerusalem. During all this time of punishment, however, there did not fail a man in the royal line of descent of King David. But That royal line ended 1900 years ago. What? Did God's covenant promise fail? And has a man failed King David for serving as the heir of the royal covenant? Not at all. Why not? Because David's line of descent ended back there with a descendant who died childless, but who lives forever. He lives today in this 20th century, and he needs no successor in the kingdom covenant. In accord with that, the only available records of the royal line of descent from King David end with Jesus Christ. No Jew living today can trace his line of descent from King David. It has ended with Jesus Christ. Jesus was born in David's birthplace, Bethlehem, Judah. By two family lines, he traces his descent from David, so that he is called the son of David in a royal sense. His human birth was miraculous, for he was in reality the Son of God come down from heaven. His life force was transferred from there to the womb of a Jewish virgin of the house of David named Mary. To secure her consent to become the mother of the Son of God, Jehovah sent his angel Gabriel to tell her that she had been chosen to be the human mother of the promised seed of the patriarch Abraham and of the promised heir of the everlasting kingdom covenant. After greeting her, the angel Gabriel said, "Have no fear, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And look, you will conceive in your womb and give birth to a son. And you are to call his name Jesus. This one will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And Jehovah God will give him the throne of David his father. And he will be king over the house of Jacob, Israel, forever. And there will be no end of his kingdom." Loyal to Jehovah's kingdom covenant, Mary lovingly consented to this miraculous act. In fulfillment of the prophecy of Isaiah 7, verse 14, the birth of Jesus from this young woman took place as a great sign, the importance of which has never lessened to this day. Jehovah's angel from heaven told shepherds of Bethlehem that this miraculous son of David was to be Jehovah's anointed one, the Christ. I am declaring to you good news of a great joy that all the people will have, because there was born to you today a Savior who is Christ the Lord in David's city. Born human in order to be really Abraham's son for blessing all nations, and to be actually David's everlasting heir to the kingdom, yet Jesus was not to be tied down to this earth by having to sit on a material throne on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. When Jehovah God made the kingdom covenant with David 3,000 years ago, he had in mind finally an everlasting heavenly kingdom for David's permanent heir. No Levite high priest could anoint Jesus to such a celestial government, Jehovah anointed him after his baptism in water, pouring down his Holy Spirit upon Jesus and sanctifying him as the Christ. Jesus was there begotten by God's Spirit to become a spiritual Son of God, due for a future life in heaven. Most fittingly, Jesus preached the kingdom of God, the kingdom of the heavens. He called disciples to follow him and seek first the kingdom. When calling them, he was really extending to them God's invitation through the prophet Isaiah. Incline your ear and come to me. Listen, and your soul will keep alive, and I shall readily conclude with you people an indefinitely lasting covenant respecting the loving kindnesses to David that are faithful. This meant that Jehovah God had purposed to give Jesus Christ some joint heirs in the heavenly kingdom. In loyalty to the kingdom covenant, Jesus welcomed such joint heirs of God's kingdom. After his last Passover with his loyal apostles, he said to them, "You are the ones that have stuck with me in my trials. And I make a covenant with you, just as my Father has made a covenant with me, for a kingdom, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones to judge the 12 tribes of Israel." What loving kindness this was from Jehovah God. Oh, so much depended on that sole kingdom heir, Jesus Christ. When he died and was buried, it looked as if at last a man of the house of David was to fail to sit upon his throne, which was the throne of Jehovah. The angel's prophecy to Daniel long ago said that the prince of the covenant would be broken by a contemptible person, Emperor Tiberius Caesar of Rome. Jesus lay broken in death, in Sheol, or Hades, which is the grave common to sinful mankind. Seemingly, it was an impossibility now to revive the kingdom covenant with David. Yet the real impossibility was for God Almighty to let his kingdom covenant fail. His loving kindness, his loyal love, which was promised in the covenant and which was righteously due to this loyal Son of Jesus Christ, could never let the covenant fail. Jehovah God had to get him out of Sheol or Hades or hell, the common grave of mankind. In Psalm 16, verse 10, Jehovah had promised in advance to do this miraculous thing. He inspired David to say, "You will not leave my soul in Sheol. You will not allow your man of loving kindness to see the pit." That prophecy assured the resurrection of Jesus, the greater David from the grave. God's resurrecting Jesus was an expression of loving kindness in support of the kingdom covenant with David. The Apostle Paul makes this plain to us, saying, quote, "That fact that he resurrected him from the dead, destined no more to return to corruption, he has stated in this way, 'I will give you people the loving kindnesses of David, which are dependable.' Hence, he also says in another psalm, 'You will not grant your man of loving kindness to see corruption.' For David on the one hand, served the express will of God in his own generation, and fell asleep in death, and was laid with his forefathers, and did see corruption. Jesus Christ is Jehovah's man of loving kindness, or man of loyal love, whom he did not leave in Sheol. By raising him up out of death to life immortal in heaven, Jehovah opened the way for extending the dependable loving kindnesses of his covenant with David to other men of loving kindness, or loyal men, the faithful apostles and all other dedicated Christians whom God begets and makes joint heirs with his Son Jesus Christ in the heavenly kingdom. In a prophetic way, David sang, "All your works will laud you, O Jehovah, and your men of loving kindness will bless you. About the glory of your kingship they will talk, and about your mightiness they will speak, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts and the glory of the splendor of his kingship." Your kingship is a kingship of all times indefinite, and your dominion is throughout all successive generations. In this time of the world's end, there is merely a remnant left on earth of these 144,000 spiritual men of loving kindness, or men of loyal love. That is to say, men who are pious or dutiful in performing their obligations to Jehovah God. During World War I, they fell short as regards their responsibilities toward God. So he got incensed at them. In his anger, he let them come into a captivity like that of the Jews in Babylon. Why did Jehovah not cast this remnant off during World War I? Because of their shortcomings under the trials and persecutions that accompanied the World War. It was because of his loyalty to the covenant. Through Jesus Christ, he had taken the members of this remnant into the kingdom covenant. Hence, he obligated himself to express the loving kindnesses to David that were promised in the covenant. When making the covenant with David, Jehovah said, "When he, the kingdom successor, does wrong, then I shall certainly reprove him with a rod of men and with the blows of the sons of Adam. As for my loving kindness, my loyal love, it will not depart from him the way I removed it from King Saul, whom I removed from before you, David, and your house. Your joint heirs in the kingdom, and your kingdom will certainly be steadfast forever before you. Your very throne will become firmly established forever." So, the remnant of men of loving kindness had to take their punishment at the hands of the nations at war from 1914 to 1918. This punishment, and they got a good amount of punishment, this punishment was a reproof from the rod of men and with the blows of the sons of Adam. Just so, too, the royal house of David long ago had to take its punishment from 607 before Christ at the destruction of Jerusalem down till A.D. 29, when the promised Messiah, the Prince, the permanent heir of King David, appeared. In 1919, Jehovah delivered the remnant who at heart wanted to be loyal to him. Then he set the remnant to work as his witnesses to an extent never before known. In the words of Lamentations 3:22 and 23, the remnant could say, "It is the acts of loving kindness of Jehovah that we have not come to our finish, because his mercies will certainly not come to an end. They are new each morning. Your faithfulness is abundant." All this deliverance and restoration was given to the remnant even without money and without price. We didn't have to bribe the governments of the world to let us go free. And so our souls have kept alive down to this day. The appropriate question now is, how can we witnesses of Jehovah, like the Israelites of old, and like Jesus and the apostles, prove our loyalty to the kingdom covenant today? We can do so by being loyal to the reigning kingdom of the everlasting heir of the kingdom covenant, Jesus Christ. Never once has Jehovah God forgotten his covenant since the last king of David's house sat on the throne of Jerusalem. It is true that the active kingdom of David was out of operation for over 6 centuries. But the miraculous coming of Jesus Christ, the Prince of the Covenant, displayed Jehovah's loyalty to the covenant to which he had sworn. Jehovah never forswears himself. When anyone takes an oath and then does not do the thing sworn to, it signifies not only that one forswears himself, but also that one brings a curse upon himself. Jehovah never brings a curse upon himself. He is forever the blessed one. When he swears by his own name or by himself, he never swears to a lie. But his solemn oath adds still more certainty to the accomplishment of the thing that he swore to. Thus, way back there, the coming of Jesus the Messiah and his resurrection from the dead proved that Jehovah's sworn covenant had not fallen into decay. It was still binding upon Jehovah God, even though the kingdom had not been operating at Jerusalem for 635 years, or from 607 BC to AD 29. But how does all this connect up with our own time? Well, the kingdom of the permanent heir of the royal covenant did not go into operation when the resurrected Jesus ascended to the heavens in the year AD 33. From the spring of that year to the autumn of 1914, or for 1,881 years, Jesus sat at God's right hand, not reigning, but waiting for God's time to come to make the enemies of the kingdom the footstool of Jesus, the kingdom heir. Did that long waiting period bring a legal death to the covenant? No. It did not lay upon Jesus in heaven a forfeiture of his right to the kingdom power because of non-use. No, for during all those centuries of patient waiting, the kingdom covenant has been active. How so? In that Jehovah has been selecting 144,000 joint heirs, those Christians who respond to his invitation and with whom he concludes the indefinitely lasting covenant respecting the loving kindnesses to David that are faithful. This does not include Christendom. Christendom, with her millions of population, has been unfaithful to the covenant ever since the 4th century. She has not waited for the kingdom of Jehovah's heir to be set up at his appointed time. She has despised the covenant. How? By entering into a union of her church with the political state or kingdoms of this world under Satan the devil. But just the same, Jehovah proved loyal to his sworn covenant by continuing to take out of this world, out of all nations, true Christians, and bringing them into the covenant. Even before Jehovah finished his work with the remnant of the 144,000 joint heirs, or finished his use of them as his witnesses on earth, Jehovah established the kingdom for which loyal men and women have thirsted and hungered. In support of his everlasting covenant with David, Jehovah had promised, as we find printed on our convention programs, in loving kindness a throne will be certainly established, and one must sit down upon it in trueness in the tent of David, judging and seeking justice and being prompt in righteousness. In the momentous year of 1914, the time came for Jehovah to seat the kingdom heir in the throne as reigning king in the tent of David, as David's son, and yet as David's heavenly Lord. Has the sun ever ceased to rise and usher in the day? Or has the moon ever ceased to shine by night? Not once till this day. Even so, Jehovah, who keeps covenant and loving kindness, has not forgotten or neglected this most important covenant for the kingdom that will vindicate him as the royal and rightful sovereign of the universe. He swore in his holiness, and it was no lie when he told King David that his royal house would endure and that his throne would be permanent. Jesus Christ, the permanent heir of the covenant of loving kindness to David, endures just like the sun and the moon. And today Jesus Christ reigns from the heavenly throne of Jehovah. Our duty is therefore clear. Jehovah's men of loving kindness owe it to God to be loyal to his enthroned reigning king, David's son and Lord. In reward for their loyal love, they eat the milk of the fatness of God's spiritual table, and they drink the wine of the joys of the kingdom ministry as kingdom ambassadors. Back there in King David's day, alien residents in Israel were loyal to him because he was Jehovah's anointed ruler, the one with whom the covenant had been made for an everlasting dynasty and a firmly established throne. Among such loyal aliens were the Gittites, that is, men of Gath of Philistia, and the Pelethites, and the Kerethites, even Jonathan, the son of the rejected King Saul, displayed unbreakable loyalty and loving kindness to David because he was Jehovah's chosen one. Yes, the very brothers of King Saul, the members of his tribe of Benjamin, put Jehovah's choice above personalities and took their stand with Jehovah's chosen anointed one, David. Today, we find faithful imitators of those ancient backers and upholders of David, Jehovah's anointed one. A great crowd of men and women who come to a knowledge of Jehovah's kingdom covenant with Jesus Christ and with his joint heirs now loyally give their support to the permanent heir of the everlasting covenant. What if these hundreds of thousands do come from so many diversified nations, tribes, peoples, and languages? This does not influence them against giving their allegiance to God's government in the heavens. They address themselves to him on his throne and to his Lamb-like Son, Jesus Christ, and hail them. With a loud voice, they unitedly cry out in public confession, "Salvation we owe to our God, who is seated on the throne, and to the Lamb." Day and night they render sacred service to Jehovah, and they let his Lamb-like Son guide them as their shepherd king. In order to give a practical expression of this loyal love to their invisible shepherd king, they keep loyal to the visible remnant of his kingdom joint heirs, his brothers on earth, those men of loving kindness whom God has taken into the kingdom covenant and whom he has gathered as approved ones to himself. This is the reason why the shepherd king approves of these other sheep and gathers them to his right hand and says, "Come, you who have my Father's blessing, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the world's foundation. Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did all such good to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." This explains why these other sheep now also share in the delicious wine and milk that today overflows from the remnant of Christ's royal brothers without money and without price. The test of loyal love to the kingdom covenant and to the reigning heir of that covenant is now on. The dictatorial power that is now bent on world domination is opposed not just to democratic Christendom, including the United States, but primarily to the kingdom heir who came to power in 1914. The prophecy of Jehovah's angel to Daniel makes this clear by saying this of this ambitious dictatorial power: "He shall turn back and be enraged and take action against the holy covenant. He shall turn back and give heed to those who forsake the holy covenant. He shall seduce with flattery those who violate the covenant. But the people who know their God shall stand firm." Large sections of Christendom have been seized by ungodly dictatorial power, and the clergy of Christendom have come to a working understanding with that dictatorial power. They have yielded to flattery from it and have chosen to serve men rather than God. Even the clergy in the United States of America and in the rest of the nominally free part of Christendom have violated the covenant and acted wickedly against it. They have proved disloyal to Christ the King, whom they profess to follow and to whom they hold the feasts each year. They have not followed the faithful course of the King's other sheep in the New World Society of Jehovah's Witnesses, but they have persecuted Jesus' brothers, a remnant of Jehovah's men of loyal kindness and loving kindness. In effect, they say, we have no king but Caesar. And it is now as true of Christendom as it was true of ancient Israel in the days of the prophet Hosea, quote, a controversy hath Jehovah with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no faithfulness, nor loving kindness, nor knowledge of God in the land. Yet, today, Jehovah does have sheep who prove loyal to him. We are no part of ignorant Christendom. We know our God. We do not forsake the covenant. We show our loyalty to his covenant with his greater David by preaching the good news of how it was set up in 1914. Everywhere we preach, in Asia, Africa, Australia, Europe, the Americas, and the innumerable islands of the sea, for a witness under our heavenly leader, whom Jehovah has given as his chief witness to the national groups. By him, the chief witness, Jehovah has decreed that to the end of this world, this good news of that kingdom long ago covenanted for must be preached. How then, if Jehovah's Witnesses, in obedience to this command, keep on preaching the good news of the kingdom to the end of this world, how then, to the end of this world, could Jehovah God ever forget the covenant for his everlasting kingdom? Without one exception, that kingdom tops all the political governments of this world. Jehovah says of his king, I myself shall place him as firstborn, the most high of the kings of the earth. To that theocratic government of Jehovah's firstborn, let our fullest, our highest, our undying allegiance, devotion, and loyalty be forever, regardless of how the powers of communism and of Christendom and of heathendom may fight against the kingdom, regardless of how fanatically they may try to hold on to their national sovereignties and their earthly domains. God's kingdom, by his covenant heir, is the irremovable actuality of today. It is the one sure thing of the eternal future. In answer to Jesus' model prayer, the Heavenly Father's kingdom will come to the battlefield of Armageddon and settle the burning government issue. And all the political rulerships of this old world must go down into Gehenna. The good news that we preach about God's kingdom, call it sensational if you will. It is sensational indeed, but it is not overdrawn. It is no joke. For 40 years now we have preached it, but it is no news that grows stale and that loses its appeal and tastiness and that needs to be dropped. It is ever new, ever fresh, growing ever grander. God has not dropped it. We will not drop it. Our God-ordained kingdom preaching must go on. It will increase till the Gentile kingdoms and rulerships end, until the millennial reign of Jesus Christ wins the glorious peace that follows Armageddon, when all devil-inspired human propagandas will have been silenced, and the propaganda warfare between communism and its opponents and against God's kingdom will have died out for all time. So, to the kingdom covenant made with Jehovah's greater David, may we always be true and loyal, no matter what comes in the future. To all men who respect that covenant and who uphold the kingdom promised by that covenant, may all of us show loving kindness and trueness. For, says Proverbs 3 and 4, may loving kindness and trueness themselves not leave you. Bind them about your throat. Write them upon the tablet of your heart. And so find favor and good insight in the eyes of God and of earthling man. For doing so, we shall find Jehovah God himself exercising these same precious qualities toward us through his King, Jesus Christ, and our souls will keep alive forever. All the paths of Jehovah are loving kindness and trueness for those observing his covenant and his reminders.